Welcome to episode 268 of the Working Fans Podcast, where we are going to talk Bad Blood, AEW 5th anniversary, Goldberger Batista, Last Monster Standing, the McMahon documentary, NXT loading up on CW, but we are loading up on Game Up Hard Hydration. It's like your favorite sports drink and your favorite seltzer. Got together, had a baby, but it's so much better. They have been the sponsors of 2024, and Dave is going to tell you what is so great about Game Up.
What's so great about it is that it comes in an 8-pack with 4 great flavors. We're talking fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and grape. And guys, it's full flavor, only 110 calories per can, so it's low carb. Enjoy Game Up and don't feel guilty about it.
No, and before we get into talking about everything we're talking about, because somebody's got to fix the banner. I fucked up. Dave, besides like the main topics this week, what else caught your eye in wrestling, or what's had you most excited?
The thing that I'd say that probably mostly excited has been, which we'll get into later, the debut of NXT on CW. And I was looking at it today without going into the show, just for people who don't have the CW network. You can watch it on the app. It wasn't loaded the day of, but I did see it there this morning. So it's happened in the last couple of days, at least.
It shows up the next day on the app.
Okay, is it like the next night? Like, is it 24 hours later?
Morning. I watched it first thing in the morning, the replay, because I tried watching it on my Fire Stick and it was a little choppy to watch. Mm-hmm. So then I just went on the app the next day. It's there. And it's also notable. NXT fully on CW. Yeah. NWA apparently fully off the CW. They're not even on the app anymore.
Interesting. I looked them up this morning just because I was curious. I did find something, but it was only 2 things, and it was NWA, but it was Adventures in Carneyland.
Oh wow! So they're still keeping the show on there.
So there's like that's like the reality show they had, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Camille was on there still and stuff too. And I watched a little bit of it. I knew I wasn't going to really watch this because it's not my thing, but I just had it on. I didn't shut it off because I was driving. And as it's going on, I hear Camille go, I'm not going to lie. You know, we're small. This is a niche audience, you know? And I thought, that's not how I would want to promote this, but okay, I get it. You know, you are. And then later on, Billy Corgan jokes around about doing wrestling moves to his brother. And he's like Ric Flair stuff. He's like, you know, we thought it was real. And I thought, it's not what I would have said to, you know, like I just, in my mind, I just started laughing. I'm like, you know, like that's the way I would want to promote the 75th anniversary of NWA. Hey, you think it's real? You know, it's like,
yeah, NWA, they're so weird because they're so comfortable living in whatever space they've carved out for themselves. Yeah. And they are happy not to change. Actually, one thing not on the lineup, but it's a big deal in wrestling this week. Let's talk about it at the top. AEW finally kind of revealing their big TV deal. Yeah. They will be streaming on Max. Apparently, that's where the library is going to be. You can buy the pay-per-views at a discount on Max. I can't wait to see what that price is, what this is all going to look like. And that starts in 2025, right?
So the pay-per-views are going to be in the middle of 2025. Max is not ready to go yet with live pay-per-views, but they're saying they expect that to be ready in the middle of 2025, and you can order them at a discounted price per pay-per-view. So some pay-per-views will be different. You'll see. But it will be immediately in the start of 2025 that you'll get Collision and Dynamite simulcast on TBS, TNT, respectively, and it will be on HBO Max as well, which I think is a big thing for them. Also, to be noted, nothing was mentioned about AEW Rampage and all of this, so you can assume AEW Rampage is probably out of here. That's probably not going to be around anymore. There is still talk about them getting a new show on Fox. Nothing's been official, but they did have that trademark for, I'm blanking out the name, maybe Aftershock or something like that. There was there's some name they recently trademarked.
I believe it is Aftershock because I heard somebody say that it's like what comes after a collision or what comes after a blast of dynamite. So could be possibly, you know, like a wrap-up show or something like that.
Yep, and the scuttlebutt is too that like if they're on Fox, it could even be FS1, something like that. And I think I heard Brian Alvarez says, but if they are on Fox, like that has to be their A show because again, and since we don't have this as a scheduled segment, I'll pitch this to too, because some people are worried because there is talk that they would add another 2-hour show of wrestling with AEW, and then there has been rumors that SmackDown is being negotiated for being 3 hours. And Netflix wants Raw back at 3 hours. I was telling AJ about this off air. We were talking like, even for him, like, how much fucking wrestling do we need? Like, that's just your two main shows in North America. Your two main companies are gonna have. If we were right, if that is all correct, you're looking at like 14 hours of wrestling, right?
Yeah. And it's
Not
interesting that you'd want to put out that much wrestling considering what we hear about wrestling not necessarily drawing the big ad rate. So it's like, why go longer if it's not what advertisers want to be on? For wrestling fans, it can be good. Like, I don't know. It's weird because we're diehard fans. When we were younger, we would have loved more wrestling.
Yeah.
Now that we have like a venue to talk about it in actual lives, it's like there's almost too much to talk about. And if I'm not mistaken, AEW's on Tuesday this coming week, right?
Our title Tuesday, although no title match is announced yet.
And that's wild because we've been talking about it for a couple weeks. And this past Tuesday, NXT finally debuted on the CW. What did you think about the first show on the CW?
I liked it. First off, shout out to AJ for giving me his YouTube TV account so I could watch the CW. I noticed some people were a little quiet in the chat that night, and I'm like thinking, I don't think a lot of us have CW in our area or what we watch. So I was happy to hear, by the way, too, that they did such a really good rating. They had almost 900,000 viewers for their initial night. And I don't remember what the demo was, but I think it was up by like 20, 30%. So anyway, great start for these guys. The show presentation looked great, especially being in front of a live crowd with a lot of people. I know that's not going to be every week with NXT. That's not what they're for. But just seeing that presentation, Chicago, seeing those rowdy fans, she and Shawn Michaels dancing in the ring, the sexy boy, made me laugh, but also kind of cool. And then Hunter comes out. But, it's not anything. It's just they're hitting the "Are you ready" thing together, and they're out of there, which is perfect. That's what you want. You want, let's play the old hits. Give us about 5 minutes. We're going to get out of here. We'll start the show. And then we're getting right to Julia and Roxanne. Great matchup. I don't know if it's a language barrier or what, but, I didn't get to watch a lot of Julia. I've heard a lot of things. I thought she had a great match, but I thought there were points in the match where Roxanne was actually kind of almost, you could almost see her really working with Julia, like, almost setting her up to go for holds. And I thought she was really working her ass off on this one. And I wondered, if there's an issue with the language barrier, coming to the States. But that being said, it's a small nitpick. Like, she hit a lot of great moves. Was not expecting Cora Jade to come out. That shocked me. I didn't get to finish watching until the next day, so I had to, with Trick Williams spoiled, winning the title. But I thought that was cool to give Trick the championship. It felt rushed at the end. They don't have an overrun anymore. I don't know if that caused them any problems. The other thing, of course, to note for me personally was, well, two things. The street fight with Zachary Wentz and Wes Lee. Great action. I thought they were killing each other. The other thing, too, seeing Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill show up to help. What's her name there? I'm just blanking out here. Kalani Jordan, at the end. One thing that was apparent to me about that, though, was Kalani Jordan. She was wearing like army fatigue pants, and she had on like a white tank top, and she just looked out of place to me because Jade Cargill and Bianca were all dressed up, and they just looked like stars to me, and I thought that was kind of glaring. But yeah, overall, I'm a little all over the place here, but I love the show. I love the look of it. I love the feel of it. And I'm going to throw one more thing before you comment on this. I just want to get your opinion on this. CM Punk at the end of this takes out Ethan Page with a GTS because Ethan Page is mad the way the match went down. Ethan Page is no longer a champion. I thought he killed it, though, in his time at NXT wouldn't it be something if Ethan Page made his debut at Bad Blood this weekend and cost CM Punk the match against Drew McIntyre?
Ooh, that would be interesting. Yeah, because I believe I saw you put up a short like Ethan Page to Raw. And I was like,
Yeah,
I don't know if he's quite done with NXT.
I don't
I
either.
don't I don't even know if CM Punk's necessarily done with NXT. I heard an interesting theory on the Working Stiff podcast that maybe CM Punk stays down in NXT for a little while. And I believe this is what they said and kind of has the young guys go against him. But I really like that. It's going to make Bad Blood interesting when we talk about Bad Blood later. And if you're not doing anything Saturday, join us for a Bad Blood watch along. I will be starting the watch along at about 5:45. Dave will come in when he's ready. We're ready for that. But going back to NXT, I watched about half of it live because, like I said, it was a little choppy on my Fire Stick. So I got through the street fight that night. I love the opening match, love that street fight. Finished the show up the next day on the CW. We said it before. It's really what WWE does well, and it's those debut episodes when they're debuting a new show, a new on a new network. They always know how to make that good impression. And I thought another reason that good impression was a little important this week was because they are, even though they are trying to distance themselves from Mr. McMahon, there's a lot of talk about the WWE overall with that documentary being out. So I think they're kind of setting themselves apart by making just NXT a good show. And it has me ready for this coming up Tuesday as well, which I think they're going to destroy AEW in the in the viewership. One, because like you said, I don't know what's on AEW coming up on Dynamite yet. And I already know that I want to see Javon Evans versus Randy Orton. I have a feeling there's going to be a debut possibly. And I know we're all expecting debuts, but I feel like this is where it could be.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're alluding to possibly the Motor City Machine Gun showing up here, and you do have a tag title match. A-Town Down Under is going after Nathan Frazier and Axiom. And by the way, A-Town Down Under come off as a much better act on NXT for some reason to me too. Like I just find Grayson Waller's personality to be a lot more engaging and funny, whereas on the main roster, I just expect him to get jobbed out. But over here, I feel like for some reason they look like they belong and they come off like a better act to me.
Yeah, I think it's because Grayson Waller still feels so new to the WWE. And the thing is, even though Austin Theory's been wrestling for years, he is still relatively young in the WWE system. So when you put him on that main roster with all these huge teams, they feel a little lesser than. While in NXT, they've been around long enough that they feel just above the teams presented, but not quite yet to that Raw and SmackDown. So I'm ready for that tag team match coming up this week. And moving on from what we saw this, or kind of on a similar note, I guess, that Netflix Mr. McMahon documentary, it is out. We are covering it episode by episode, and so are a lot of other podcasts. Dave, I asked you, have you seen any of the responses to the McMahon documentary? And you said you haven't been too clued into any of that.
No, I mean, I've listened to people mention it initially, talking about that episode 6 is kind of where everything goes down, and which we talked about last week ourselves. I think it was Dave Meltzer who said episode 2 and episode 6 were his favorites. Dave, I thought really shined on that, by the way. But no, I haven't seen a lot of the reactionary podcasts to it. I know you had mentioned 83 Weeks did a really good job.
Yeah, so I've been obviously, so I subscribed to the Post Wrestling Patreon, and they covered it episode by episode, and that was kind of my inspiration for doing that. But then I saw that Jim Cornette covered it on one of his episodes and put it out, and he put it out on YouTube going episode by episode. So it's interesting to hear his input as well. Eric Bischoff, another one. did live watch alongs with, or not watch alongs, but reviews with Conrad. One they did by themselves, and then other ones they brought guests in, which was interesting. And just even hearing at work what people thought about this documentary. People not familiar with wrestling, to them, it's some of the craziest stories. And they're talking about these wrestling angles they used to watch. When they ask me about it, and it's kind of, you're going to hear it from any like real wrestling voice. Not that I'm a wrestling voice, but we talk about it a little more than the average person. We found a lot good, but then we also found a lot lacking. So I think non-fans really seem to be blown away. People that know a little more are a little more critical of it.
Yeah, I will say this too, as somebody has a business delivering bread and goes store to stores. People who know I'm a wrestling fan but don't necessarily talk to me about wrestling have asked me about if I've seen this documentary yet. So it's out there. There is a buzz out there as it relates to this thing.
Yeah, and if you want to hear our opinions, check out our YouTube. I believe today, I'm going to say tonight at 9 p.m., episode 1 of what we thought about the Mr. McMahon documentary comes out. You're going to hear our opinions on episode 2 next Friday. And every Friday for 6 weeks, we will be talking about Vince McMahon. It's just very interesting to see how the world has received this. And one other thing that has been very interesting, we were looking forward to it. The last Monster Standing match on Monday Night Raw. Unlike something coming up later, I feel like this lived up to the hype. I expected a big fight. Yeah. This is what I thought. Guy at work asked me, he's like, do you think we see the collapsing ring? I'm like, we 100% see the collapsing ring. And they gave it to us. It was amazing. Dave, how did you enjoy this match?
I enjoyed it a lot. I was surprised at how long the match actually went. They went through like 2 commercial breaks. And then especially when you looked like Braun Strowman looked like he hurt his leg or knee at some point during the match. And he just kept going. And he did that ridiculous dive at one point where he dove on everybody, the officials. I mean, I know some people were mad about the official. I think it was on Busted Open Radio also too, because there's a point where they go flying through the fans and they send a bunch of people out there to check on the fans, but then the referees checking on them too. And it's like you have like 20, 30 officials out there, so you don't need the referee out there. And Bronson Reed is hitting that big tsunami, and he hit 2 of them, and the referee's not counting. So he's mad. And it was like he should be mad, you know? And then Bronson goes out there, but just the chaotic nature of it was what I love. You know, Bronson is going out there, he's manhandling referees, and then he's pushing around officials. And then there's always like this big heated moment where he grabs the Raw GM there. What's it?
Adam Pearce.
Adam Pearce. And Adam Pearce, you know, it's like you can feel the crowd. Like, is he going to hit Adam Pearce? And he doesn't quite do it. And then here's where big Braun Strowman comes out and dives on everybody. It was crazy. I would have thought Bronson Reed would have won. That's the only thing I was surprised at. And I didn't want to see him win. But it was so well done. It was so good. And when you have Seth Rollins coming back and giving Bronson Reed the big stomp on the stairs, it made sense that Braun Strowman would win. And now we're going to get ready, looks like, for Seth Rollins to be back and feud with Bronson Reed. I am curious to see how they book that because they have done such a good job of Bronson Reed being this big monster. I can't wait to see kind of what they do with him next year.
100%. This was a great match, and I would say it was an even better Raw because I felt like the whole episode just kept moving along. Everything felt exciting. This match lived up to the hype. I'm ready to see what happens next week.
Absolutely. Let's bring it on. 2 hours next week.
And oh, God, I cannot wait for that. And I feel like we're going to get spoiled on 2-hour Raws. It's going to go back to 3-hour Raws. 3-hour Raws are just too big. You know what I mean? I feel like 2 hours is going to be the spot. But when you're talking about big men in wrestling, there was once upon a time, you put up the comparison, Bill Goldberg, Dave Bautista, better big man in the ring. And I got to tell you, after watching Halloween Havoc 97 this week, I almost want to give it to Dave Bautista because of what that show did to me. But Bill Goldberg's appearance was powerful, and I
Yeah.
just loved seeing the run-in. So, uh, who was your pick between these two, and what kind of were you thinking when you put the comparison together?
When I put it together, I just thought, these are two big guys, but they're also big stars. They were really successful. Like, people know who Bill Goldberg is still. That streak has always lived on, and people always remember that. And then his brief comeback in WWE, even though I think people might have got a little tired of him, but that initial comeback where he beat Brock Lesnar in like 30 seconds, like Bill was just booked really, really well. And I really thought Bill Goldberg, especially later on in his career, really knew his character and knew who he was. That being said, Batista, he's the better big man in my eyes because I think he's just better at telling a story, and he can have longer matches. And I think part of that is just being right place, right time, because Batista was really groomed to be in his position, right? Like he was at Ohio Valley Wrestling with guys like Jim Cornette and all those top talent that was down there at the time. And then he's going to get put in a position where he's working with Triple H and Ric Flair. Not bad to be in the right place at the right time. He had the look, but to his credit, he delivered when he had to.
Yeah, for anybody that's a Dave Batista fan, check out his Ohio Valley Wrestling time as Leviathan. It's one character that Jim Cornette always talks huge about. Maybe it's just because I saw more Goldberg in his prime.
Yeah.
I've seen Batista later in his career, obviously familiar with what he's done with movies. I was never hugely impressed with him in the ring. Like, capable enough wrestler, did his thing. But for me, even though Goldberg wasn't wildly, I I don't know how to say it. Like, when Goldberg was booked perfectly, he looked like a monster. When you started getting away from that a little bit is where you saw kind of the limits there. But in my mind, yeah, I still got to go with Goldberg.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I just think Goldberg was I don't think he just wasn't really capable of having longer matches. And again, I'm a guy to watch both of them. I watched a lot of Batista. I was watching Batista during this time period of wrestling, and he was by no means, I mean, he's not Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, but he could have a longer match than Bill, at least consistently.
Definitely. And let us know your thoughts in the comments. Another thing, a lot of people that watch our videos aren't subscribed. So if you're watching this, hit that subscribe button, get more interesting wrestling talk. And before we get into the last couple subjects of our show, we got a quick commercial for you.
Hey fans, it's the man they call Dave with producer Joe. And you probably know us as the commentary team for New Heights Pro Wrestling. But when we're not doing that, we got a podcast.
That is the Working Fans Podcast, where we talk pro wrestling, comedy, MMA, and so much more.
And tell them about that signature segment.
Oh, you talk about the 531?
You know I am.
That is a homegrown creation that has been our namesake. And if you want to know our namesake, we got Chevy, AJ Strange Brew, as well as the two of us.
And why don't you go to our channel, like, subscribe, show us some love.
Rate, review, all of it.
All of it.
Love it. This week, Wednesday, AEW 5th anniversary show. Before we get into, talking about the show, 5 years of AEW coincides with 5 years of the Working Fans Podcast.
Coincidence? I think not.
What's that?
Coincidence? I think not.
It's kind of lucky that us getting to put together this podcast kind of lined up with AEW, because you can go back in our archives and hear us talking about it from the start. Hear how much fans we are of this company. We celebrated the big news this week, but what did you think of this 5th anniversary episode?
It was good. I don't think it was like anything to knock my socks off. Bryan Danielson, and Okada. The only thing with that was we knew kind of what was going to happen because they put that stipulation in there with the 20-minute mark. Okada's title wouldn't be on the line. And I thought that was kind of just a tell. it was interesting how much time they gave him. Like, I think they had like a half-hour overrun altogether. But and then we had that great Will Ospreay Ricochet match, ends in a draw, but then we want to start it up again, and then Takeshita comes out and just beats them both up. So I thought that was a little bit of a letdown. I enjoyed Mark Briscoe and Jericho getting into each other's face, maybe because of Mark Briscoe. I have not enjoyed a lot of Jericho, but Mark Briscoe, that guy, like when people do this, right? When they mention people's family members that passed away, and Jericho does that about Jay, and Mark just decks them in the face. It's like that's what I would expect Mark Briscoe to do. So those are some of the things I liked on the show. But overall, yeah, I would say it was a decent show, but I don't think it was any better than Grand Slam or anything.
Yeah, I was so looking forward to that Ricochet Will Ospreay match. And for the most part, the match was great. But then just the ending kind of killed it for me. I mean, I understand you're setting up Takeshita, so that kind of lines it up well. But just, I would have hoped for more. Overall, it was a good, like you said, good episode. Nothing great. I'm interested to see Collision this week. What's that?
Shelton Benjamin showing up was one of my favorite parts.
Yes, that too. There were good things going on. Like we talked earlier, it looks like they're lining up possibly for the Hurt Business to come into AEW. I've heard talks of Lashley being signed. That would be major. This company looks like they're kind of starting to pick things up going forward with this big TV deal.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I think they're I don't know how long the TV deal is for. I think it's like 2 or 3 years, but you want to get picked up again, so they have to get some momentum going, and they have to keep growing. So I hope they do. Brian Danielson does not have many more matches in him. I gotta feel like, he's still having great matches, but he looks a little beat up here.
Yeah, you can only go so long, and especially like when he thought he was done years ago, and then he has this second career coming out of it. You got to wonder how long he can keep it up. And I've been loving the reign. I'm looking forward to him versus Moxley, and I'm also looking forward to one more thing today. Dave, do you have your notes ready?
I have the card in front of me.
Boom. Bad Blood. So like we said, oh shit, 7 p.m. tomorrow?
It is.
I thought it was 6 p.m.
Yeah.
It is 6 p.m.?
It is 6 p.m. I don't know what happened because it has to be over with before the UFC event.
Okay, this might have been an old graphic because I got this off of Google because we are starting the live watch along. Like I said, I'll be kicking it off at 5:45 to get a little bit of talk before the episode, play a couple commercials, see if anybody shows up early. Dave will be there by 6. We will be getting back to the watch alongs with this card. And once again, what I love about this card, 5 matches. It's not going to feel like Halloween Havoc 97. And I don't think they could kick off with a better match than Halloween Havoc 97. Watch for that next week. But Dave, let's run down this card and make some predictions.
All right. First match I'm going to go over. A match I heard it's not going to actually be the main event, at least according to a Wrestle on a Story on Instagram. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in a Hell in a Cell. They might open the show with this. Don't understand that if that is the case. But regardless, we'll find out the match order tomorrow. But CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, this has been built up. This is probably the best built rivalry in all of wrestling right now in terms of like at least mainstream wrestling. Look at the two companies. These guys have been feuding for a while. It has to end. I think I said something earlier in the show. I'm just going to go with it as my prediction. I'm going to say, even though it's a wild card prediction, what the hell? I'm going to say, no, fuck that. I ain't going to say it. Even though I think it'd be cool if Ethan Page debuted and cost Punk. I think, no, I'm going to say it. I'm going back and forth. I'm going to say it. Drew McIntyre is going to win tomorrow, and it's going to be with the help of Ethan Page.
Ooh. I like that prediction. It's a little different and incorporates NXT with the main roster. I'm surprised we're disagreeing on the first match, but I'm thinking CM Punk gets the win, puts this to bed.
Yeah.
The thing I like better about your prediction is it gives a storyline going forward. I don't know where CM Punk necessarily goes after this if he wins, because obviously you would have thought Seth Rollins would be that next person in line, but it looks like you're setting up Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. So I'm going to say
Yeah.
CM Punk, but I would not be mad at yours if that happens.
I think Punk is the smart pick because I think you could be setting up a CM Punk Gunther match at some point too, which would be really fun. But I love Ethan Page and I just love to see it. So I'm gonna put my heart on the line. I'm gonna go with that. We're gonna move on though. Next match, WWE Women's Championship. Nia Jax defending her title against Bayley in a rematch. I'd like to see Bayley win this, but I don't think it's going to happen. Nia Jax.
Oh, once again, I'm going to pick Bayley in this.
All right.
Tiffany Stratton is going to cash in that Money in the Bank.
Okay.
Get the title back for her and Nia. And then there's going to be some issue, like maybe Nia tries claiming the title from Tiffany since they're aligned. Maybe it sets up Nia versus Tiffany. But I feel like it's going to be the Bayley win and the cash in.
All right. Damian Priest and Finn Balor. Finn Balor gets some help. He pulls off the victory.
I'm right there with you. I wouldn't mind seeing Damian winning, but the thing with Damian winning is, like I've said with all these matches, where does it go next? If you have somebody help Finn Balor, it puts another match on this card and then keeps this rivalry going. Who knows? Maybe it ends. I don't know. It ends in some kind of stipulation, possibly at Survivor Series.
Liv Morgan with Dirty Dominic inside a shark cage, hoisted above the ring. That's old school versus Rhea Ripley. I'm going to say Ripley gets her championship back. I'm going to say there's interference from the Judgment Day, but Damian Priest will come back out here and actually help. And Dirty Dom will try to do something and it will backfire. And Rhea Ripley's going to win and she's going to be moving on.
I had it exactly like you laid it out in my head, except for the Judgment Day not coming out. I feel like Dom is going to try and drop something from the shark cage. Rhea's going to get a hold of it. She's either going to utilize it or throw it out the ring, get that victory, and get that championship.
Main event, or maybe not. We'll see. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus the Bloodline, Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. I am very excited that Jacob Fatu is going to be in this match. And I can see a scenario where Jacob Fatu gets a big win here over Cody Rhodes or Roman Reigns. And they're going to really do that to elevate him.
I think the same thing.
Roman and Cody.
The only thing I will say is if this is in that main event spot, there is going to be a debut of another Samoan, and I think we see the debut of Hikuleo in WWE.
I like that. He could show up and beat up Cody and Roman afterwards if they get the win, or he could help Jacob and Solo win. I think I'm going to go with Cody and Roman. They'll keep him looking strong. They'll get the win. They'll keep Jacob Fatu strong, but ultimately one of them will take the pin. And then I'll say Hikuleo shows up and actually lays him out, and that's going to be the end of the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go with Solo and Jacob. They either get the win and Hikuleo comes out as, intimidation, or Hikuleo causes that loss for Cody and Roman. And then that just kind of sets up this unease between Cody and Roman. Do they fight? Do they team? And, that's what we got this week. Very good Bad Blood pay-per-view. We got a live watch along. And, when I'm sitting back in my chair thinking about wrestling all day, I do it with a nice cold Game Up hard hydration in my hand. If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store. And here at the Working Fans Podcast, we enjoy Game Up Hard Hydration, and we enjoy a trip to Wrestleville.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Wrestleville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harrison, Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Wrestleville.com. Wrestleville. It's where wrestling lives.
All you goddamn wrestling fans out there, listen, Old Black Bart has got a book. It's called Wrestle Black Bart. It's got some dadgum good stories in there about some dadgum good wrestlers.
Read stories of Dusty Rhodes, the Von Erich, Scott Casey, Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, Mr. Fuji, Ron Bass, Bruiser Brody, Mike Davis, the Grappler, and many others.
And I guarantee you one thing, that it'll be the best dadgum read you've had in a long, long time.
Get your book today at Wrestleville.com or on Amazon. Wrestleville, it's where wrestling lives.